Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back here to today's edition of the Fishing Teacher, and man, I appreciate you guys checking out today's video and hanging out with me for a little bit. And guys, today I want to talk about how you know that you've selected the right lure color. And a lot of people say, well, Randy, it's easy to know if I've selected the right lure color because I'm catching fish on it. That's not the case all the time, because you may be catching fish on a lure, but it still may not be the best color. You might be able to have a different color to catch more and bigger fish. So I'm going to give you guys some tips and advice on how to know. There's some signs that I can give you that know that you're throwing the right color of lure based upon the conditions that you're fishing. So we're going to get into that in today's video. Also, guys, for get started, a couple quick things here. You guys have probably heard me talking about that YouTube has changed a bunch of stuff over the past 3 or 4 months, and they are making it really tough on all of us guys that put YouTube videos out. It's really been a struggle for the last 3 or 4 months. So I really appreciate everybody that's taking time to support the channel by, things that you can do as a subscriber. Man, if you hit that subscribe button, guys, to the Fishing Teacher, it's free and easy to do so. That really helps the channel out. If you subscribe, like the videos, share the videos, a big deal. And also, guys, by using all the links that I put in the description to support a Fishing Teacher here, that's a really good way to give back, because, man, like I said, YouTube's been making it really tough on us. So I appreciate all the support there. And also, guys, I will put my Tackle Warehouse link in the description of this video. They've got a big Black Friday sale going on right now, so it's a really good time to get some stuff for next year or for some holiday gifts. So I'll put that link in the description if you want to take advantage of that sale. I really appreciate it. Okay, now let me show you an example here, what I'm talking about when you know that you're using the right lure color. Here is this is a mega bass. It's called HT Tennessee Shad color, which is one of my favorite colors that they make. They make it in a lot of different baits. This is just the 110 here. Here's the exact same lure after 2 days of fishing at Lake Kissimmee on it. You can see how much this bait has gotten eaten by the fish. This is the exact same color here. This is an HT Tennessee Shad. This is an HT Tennessee Shad, and you can see, I've caught so many fish on it that it just literally took the paint off of it. Okay, let's talk a little bit about the signs that you know and how I knew that this was the right bait, other than the fact that you're catching some fish on it. First of all, when you are trying to figure out the best bait color-wise for a fish, it changes every single day. Every day it changes. You can't say that, okay, I'm gonna use this HT Tennessee Shad because this is a good color and I'll catch fish on it. That's nothing but something that's gonna work under certain conditions better than something else may. Now, here's the thing that you gotta remember. Let's say, for example, you find a color, you caught a bunch of fish on, a lure that you think's working pretty good, and you got a partly cloudy day. Say the wind's blowing 5 miles an hour out of the south. Say that, your water visibility is 3 foot clarity, something like that, and you've caught a lot of fish. If you go out the next day and say, for example, it's not partly cloudy, instead it's sunny, and instead of a 5 or 10 mile an hour wind that you had the day before, the wind is completely calm or slick. Water visibility is about the same. Now, that light intensity and that light penetration that occurs from a different type of cloud level or a different type of wind direction or wind speed, or even the angle of the sun, all of that is going to change how a lure color looks to the fish in the water, because the light intensity causes certain lures to stand out more or blend in more. And also the time of the day. The way that a lure looks in the water at 8 o'clock in the morning does not look the same at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. So one of the things you have to remember when you're trying to pick out the right color is you have to realize that color may change throughout the course of the day. If you start out at 8 o'clock in the morning and say it's cloudy out and you're catching them on a certain color, and then at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, the clouds dissipate and it's partly cloudy, that may not work and you have to make another adjustment. So a lot of picking out what you think is the best color has to do with experimentation based upon the changes of the light intensity. Okay, here's some indications how you know that you're throwing the right lure. One of the best indications is how the fish bite a lure or how they are hooked when you get them in the boat. If you are throwing the right lure, most of the time these fish are going to get it head first. So when you say, for example, on the jerkbait, if you got the right color, you're going to notice that the bass have got all 3 hooks in their mouth, and a lot of the the main part of the mouth, the head part of the lure is further in the fish's mouth. If you don't have the right color, you might still get the strike and you might still catch fish, but your fish is going to get hooked on the rear treble right here. This is going to be where the fish is hooked at because it reacted maybe to the action of the lure and the profile of the lure, yet it was a little bit hesitant. So instead of coming up to this lure and just gobbling it without any hesitation because you had the right color, they come up through there. It's like, man, that looks pretty good. Ah, man, I'm not sure about it. They nip at it and get it by the back hook. Let me give you guys a prime example. I was fishing a tournament down at Table Rock Lake. It was actually practicing for a tournament down there, and it was the second day of the tournament, second day of practice, and I was catching them on a color down there called the Skeleton Tennessee, which is sort of a translucent blueback jerkbait. And they were and it was a cloudy day. It was cloudy with not much wind. They were gobbling it up. They were getting it head first every time. All the hooks were in the fish's mouth all day long. It was like, I knew that I had the right color. Okay, the next day we get out there and the clouds had dissipated a little bit, but not a lot. It was like 75% overcast. You know, clouds would be popping in and out of the sun would be popping in and out of the clouds occasionally, but it wasn't cloudy like the day before. And I was throwing the same bait, the Skeleton Tennessee, and I started getting the fish to get hooked on the back hook. It was just like instead of gobbling it the day before, they were on the back hook. And it was only when I changed colors to more of a translucent, like a green back that was like translucent and was a lot more subtle in the water. And then they started getting it head first again because it had to do with the light intensity and the light penetration. But the number one thing that you're going to notice, guys, and this is what I want to talk about today, the video, pay attention to where that fish is hooked at. On a hard bait, like a reaction bait, like a jerk bait or a crank bait or something like that, getting it by the head's a good sign. And if you're fishing a slow bait, how you can tell you've got the right color is, let's say, for example, you're flipping a jig or you're dragging a worm or something like that. The bite that you get on a jig or a worm or some type of a slow bait will be a lot more pronounced than if you don't have the right bait. If you got the right bait, a lot of times you'll work that bait and all of a sudden you'll just see your line tick. Your line will jump. And when you have your line jump, what it means is that bait, say for example, is on the bottom and the fish come up behind it and they flare their gills and they suck that bait into their mouth by flushing their gills like that. And that's what makes it look like your line jumping. But if you notice and you're working that bait and you've got just you feel, man, is that a strike? I'm not sure. My line didn't move. Something just feels spongy. A lot of times that's when they swim up there. They're hesitant. It may not be the right color, and they just sort of nip at it like that. And they may start slowly swimming off with it, with the bait, maybe even the tail of the trailer in there. Let me give you an example I'm talking about with a slow bait. I was practicing for a tournament down at the Chaffalay Basin in Louisiana, FLW tournament, and I was flipping a jig on cypress trees. And I was flipping a brown jig with a brown trailer on it, solid brown setup like that. And it was frustrating because I'd pitch in there and I'd get a good bite. It's like, it wasn't, my line wasn't jumping, but it was a bite and my line started swimming out. And it's like, I'd flip in there, my line would start swimming out, and I'd set the hook, and nothing. It's like there wouldn't be anything there. And it's like, man, I knew, it's like that was not a perch bite. I know that was a bass bite. I know the difference between a perch bite and a bass bite. So I did this a couple more times, and I kept messing the fish. So the next time I said, okay, I'm going to let them run with it. So I pitched in there, got a bite, and I let them swim like 20 foot away with it. I just, let them swim down the bank, set the hook, and then I caught them. But what they were doing is they were hesitant on that brown chunk, and they were picking the bait up by the chunk, swimming out with it, and eventually they'd slowly start eating it, getting more in their mouth after they swam 20 feet. So I said, I don't have the right color of setup here. So instead of the brown chunk, I stayed with the brown jig. I put on a green pumpkin chunk, and I dyed the tail chartreuse in it to give it a different look, so they could really focus on the bait more. They started eating it after that. It's like I pitch in there, set the hook, as soon as I felt the strike and didn't lose any. That's what I'm talking about when you know how the fish, if you're using the right color, it's how the fish strike the bait, the aggressiveness of the strike, or how the lure is in the mouth when the fish hits. So ultimately, guys, that's one of the things about bass fishing. It's like a lot of people try to oversimplify bass fishing in terms of lure colors, and you can't. Bass are very, very color sensitive in lures. I don't care if it's a jig or if it's a crankbait or whatever. I'm not saying that you can't catch bass on maybe you don't have the ideal color, but you'll still catch a few bass out of a reaction strike, and bass just hitting it out of curiosity. But if you experiment around and try different colors, and eventually you're going to find one that the bass prefer over another color, especially if you know there's some fish there. And the best way to do that is if you get into an area that you're getting a few bites. Let's say you're working a crankbait down a big riprap bank, and you're catching one once in a while, but the fishing's slow, but you're still getting some bites. Perfect situation to experiment with colors, because there's some bass there. They're hitting your crankbait. Try to experiment. Put on a different color. Try it for 5 or 10 minutes. If it doesn't work, try another color. That's how you figure out the color that the bass want the best. So anyway, guys, hope it helps you catch some good ones. We'll check in later. See you.